Once again, good morning and welcome to today's hearing with the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, regarding the President's proposed fiscal 2023 budget request for the State Department, Foreign Operations, and related programs. On behalf of my colleagues, I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary, for joining us today for your ongoing leadership and service to our country and our global community. The international challenges we face today are obviously immense. The COVID-19 pandemic still rages the world. Fundamental democratic values are under threat, not least in Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, but also in many countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Climate change and war are fueling a looming food crisis, and division, violence, poverty, and natural man-made disasters seem on the rise on just about every single continent. Your budget with the State Department, the U.S. Agency for International Development, and our international agencies is tasked with responding to all of these challenges. That's why I have long argued that our international affairs budget should be equal to, if not greater than, our military budget. Our military tools should be used as the last resort, whereas the resources we provide to diplomatic development and humanitarian efforts are on the front lines every single day, working to save lives, promote stability, and increase engagement, and prevent wars. Congress must work harder to provide an international affairs budget that addresses today's global problems, from the climate crisis to unprecedented levels of human suffering, while at the same time working to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The SDGs are an important opportunity to frame the work the United States does around the world in support of these consensus goals, such as gender equality, ending extreme hunger and poverty, and improving public health. This subcommittee will continue to push all of the agencies under our jurisdiction, recognizing we will only succeed on the SDGs with U.S. leadership and our partners working together toward common purpose. While I hope we can improve on what we were able to secure in fiscal year 2022, we are likely to continue to face limited and overstretched resources. So today, we will discuss the administration's request for $65.77 billion for fiscal year 2023, which is a very modest $7.8 billion increase over the enacted fiscal 2022 levels. The request notably increases for humanitarian, global health, climate, and democracy programs are good. It also recognizes that these and our other development and diplomatic goals can only be achieved with a workforce that is fully staffed, well-trained, committed to the mission, and representative of the diversity of the American people. I'm pleased that the request increases funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility efforts at the Department of State and USAID, and much needed increases in staffing positions and operating expenses. I also want to commend you, Mr. Secretary, for naming Ambassador Gina Abercrombie Winstanley as the department's first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, and for your work to prioritize diversity in our diplomatic corps, as well as systemic changes that will hold the department accountable to its commitments. And yes, Mr. Secretary, today's hearing will provide members of our subcommittee a timely opportunity to hear directly from you on the latest efforts by the Biden-Harris administration to pursue an end to the vicious and gratuitous and bloody assault on Ukraine by Russia. I also hope you will provide an update on our response to the COVID-19 pandemic around the world, including vaccine development and distribution, and helping developing countries recover from the pandemic's devastating impacts across all aspects of life and livelihood. You've heard me say that I think our response was too slow, and now we face a situation where funding for international efforts has either been deprioritized or deleted from the discussion altogether. This is unacceptable and short-sighted. I've always said that what affects one affects all. We will not turn the page on this pandemic without helping the rest of the world recover, while we in the United States do so as well. At the same time, we should all be working as hard as possible to avoid a global food crisis, which experts warn is increasingly likely after so many compounding crises, including the pandemic, supply chain shortages, high energy costs, climate shocks, and of course, the war in Ukraine. The United States has always been a global leader in delivering life-saving assistance, but averting a global food disaster will require our allies and other donors to step up as well. It's evident, Mr. Secretary, that the administration has worked very hard over the last year and a half to restore America's global reputation, promote engagement and dialogue with international organizations and partners, and return to policies that were making progress and producing results before the previous administration took us in another direction. So I applaud you in your efforts to bring the United States and Iran back into compliance with the JCPOA. And I know that the ongoing negotiations are extremely difficult given how much time and trust has been lost. But I urge the administration to continue to engage with Congress on the developments in Vienna. I'm also eager to discuss this administration's ongoing approach to continually under-prioritized regions in the world, including Sub-Saharan Africa and the Caribbean, both of which represent untapped potential in terms of partnership and economic opportunity. Also, the migration issues from Central America, we want to make sure that it's just and it's humane and sustainable. Of course, you know, we lost time and progress during the previous administration's suspension of assistance to the region, and yet we still face challenges supporting locally led efforts to end endemic corruption and impunity while investing in human security and durable development outcomes. So these are just a few of these issues, Mr. Secretary, they're on the top of my mind and others. Our appreciation I want to express for the strong support for the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria for their replenishment cycle. And now I would like to once again thank you for your tireless work on behalf of our country and look forward to your testimony. And first, I would like to yield now to my colleague, our ranking member, Mr. Rogers.